Hey everyone, so in this video it's just going to be a compilation of a bunch of different war film that I took during this current cross-regional war. You're going to see me attack a variety of different teams of all different levels. Right now, I believe this is against Chaos Theory. I fled on the first turn because Arav ended up going off, and there was just no recovering from that. Whenever Jackie teams have a Dr. Stevens, I find them to be more difficult because obviously they have extra HP. And then on top of that, you can have these turn 1 defense teams that can be quite difficult to control. Now, I got a little lucky on this attack where my princess was able to normalize as well as taunt 3 toons who otherwise were going to rush. Now, this team is especially difficult right now because they're not the general, so they get a 20% defense boost. On top of that, they have the yellow tower giving all yellow toons a 30% HP boost on top of the 50% HP boost that a Jackie lead gives. So this team is quite tanky. Jackie with her active skill makes the team even tankier by giving that additional 50% defense, but I used Priya's active skill in order to remove that defensive buff, which made killing the team a lot easier than if I were just to attack and forego using the active skill to remove a buff. I'm finding a lot of defensive teams are running Bide and Payback toons. Even as a 6-star, Cam Scar is a very effective toon because he can create these taunt loops, which include him healing himself 100% and then taunting the enemy and giving himself elusive. By giving himself elusive, it means when I attack that toon, I will not be gaining any AP off of them, but I am constantly giving Cam Scar AP. He also has that special weapon where he has a 20% chance to gain 100% AP when being attacked. So he's the perfect type of toon to try and exhaust. I just don't like using Angel on an attack team. I don't find her to be effective enough, especially because I don't think Trauma does enough at the moment, meaning there are not enough toons that recover penalties and abilities that Trauma would come into play consistently. I would have a very inconsistent team using a Trauma toon. Not to say it can't be done, it would just be really difficult. And right now, here's an example of a Rosita S-Class Bide toon being really effective. She's just so tanky, especially having the 30% HP buff. And if I didn't have Princess, I would really struggle on this character. Another method to go through really tanky characters is by using Bleed or Infection. And I've been actually thinking about making an Infection team. I just got my second 5-star Dayu the other day, so I'm planning on making a double Dayu team with stun weapons. I just think she could be effective because when she rushes, she applies bleed as well as taunts the enemy. She's a lacerator toon that can also apply crosshairs because I can't remember the exact term. I think it's not headhunter, but it is the combination of headhunter and a lacerator. So maybe putting together a more defensive team that controls the enemy but infects them to death would be pretty effective. Like, I know a lot of players right now are using Mateo because he has been fixed. So by using his infection on the first turn, if he can apply 100% heal reduction to the enemy, well, that's 4 toons that will be dead by the third turn. If you're able to control them and prevent any healing, that means there's only one other toon that you really need to worry about, but you can apply infection with a number of different toons. Like Minerva would be another toon, Mr. Jones, but he's a bit slow. Dayu, as I mentioned, so there's just a lot of different options that you could use. I really think that I need to construct a team like that before WOC, just because I expect there to be a lot of tanky teams like this team in front of me, and my Mercer team is not going to cut it. It takes too long to beat some of these teams, or I just end up failing against some of them because they're so tanky and buffy that without having an indirect way of applying damage, I'm going to struggle even more so than what I'm struggling with right now. There are a number of different toons that I'm kind of focusing on at the moment. I would also love to get an S-Class Frost. I think he would beef up my defense a lot and make me a much more effective player. Looking at this Payback Negan on defense, I would love to still get a Payback toon for attack, just so I can deal with some of the turn 1 rushing teams a little faster. It might mean that I end up losing a toon or two, but if I'm able to deal with some defense teams in like 10 to 15 seconds instead of 35, I will gladly take that because that to me is valuable time, especially if I'm in Camp A or I'm being targeted first. That way I could just get some points before being destroyed. I guess now is as good a time as any to really kind of talk about some strategies for fighting Mercer leads, because as I mentioned in other videos, Mercer is becoming a very common toon because Scopely has pushed him out for free-to-play players to pick up now. He's in the Torch roadmap, and his cards were some of the main prizes a couple weeks back, so he's a very readily available toon. Some of the ways to combat Mercer is by using a Mercer lead, even an Angel lead or a Jackie lead against Mercer, just RNG against RNG, which is pretty inconsistent, but at the same time, you're at a disadvantage if you don't use an RNG lead or if you don't have really good resist mods. And we all know that even with amazing resist mods, you can easily become stunned, taunted, confused, impaired. A number of different status effects can still affect you, even if you have something like a 75% resist mod. Another option when facing these teams with a Mercer lead is if it's a turn 1 rushing defense team, try to attack the commanding toon because that team is not going to rush if that commanding toon is stunned, taunted, confused, or if you force them to rush. So if you're able to give them enough AP that they have to rush, they will rush before they end up commanding. And in some cases, that's the best case scenario. A lot of the times I try to attack the yellow command toon because they usually have an 8% AP weapon. Even if they have Dr. Stevens, there's sometimes that 8% AP weapon just to supplement the AP of a high AP toon. Another option that you have is also doing nothing on the first turn. If Mercer is the lead and there are green and blue toons behind him, you could end up triggering the team, if it doesn't have a Dr. Stevens of course, because you're attacking. So sometimes the best option is to defend on the first turn, give your whole team that plus 50% defense buff, or however many toons can get the defensive buff because some might be stunned, and then on turn 2, focus on controlling them. Because I have myself, I've attacked a Mercer lead on the first turn, and because of Priya's rampage, for example, I've ended up triggering both Priya, Princess, and Mercer, and then the match is already over with before I've even made my own real attack, where I can use all my toons to their fullest ability. Personally, on my Mercer team, I also have high stun resist mods so that I'm not just starting out with both teams stunned. I'm hoping that a couple of my toons are able to resist the stun, and based on the weapons that I use, like Glenn does have a stun weapon, so that can help with control on attack. Obviously, if Glenn and Dr. Stevens are not stunned or confused by using them on the first turn, or dazed at that matter, by using Dr. Stevens on the first turn, I'll usually be able to control up to 3 toons because I can taunt as well as impair with Dr. Stevens. Mercer provides the stun, so those are 3 different status effects. And since toons can only have up to 2 resist mods, it means I have a high chance of being able to control at least some of the defensive team. By being able to direct who becomes taunted and impaired with Dr. Stevens, it gives me the opportunity to decide who I need to control. And by identifying the different toons on defense and understanding what they do, it helps me with my decision on who I need to control. Because I already need to attack with my damage dealers to start before rushing Dr. Stevens so that Dr. Stevens gives the 60% AP to those specific toons, it becomes a lot easier when deciding who I need to pinpoint with Dr. Stevens to use that rush. Because in some cases, I could end up charging a toon on defense completely to their full AP bar just by using basic attacks, especially because of Priya with her rampage. So it's just something I need to be mindful of and be careful of. Another less elegant method of dealing with Mercer lead teams is by using defense when stunned mods in the bottom left hand corner on your mod set. So you'll get bonus defense, so you're less likely to die in the first turn. And you can also look at using more of a tanky team, a team that does indirect damage, because when a Mercer is used on defense, there's no defense or HP bonus, so their defense and HP is usually a little lower unless you're facing some of the top teams in the game. So I know some people run Pete on attack just for that specific case, because Pete is a very tanky toon. If the defense has a turn 1 rushing team with Mercer and you don't have a payback toon to counter it, If you run Pete, he's probably going to survive. So if you can command rush him on the second turn, well, you have a chance to bring back 2 toons so long as they're not decapitated, and you're giving them guardian shields. So you would need to have like an attack buff or defense debuff in a toon so that you can leverage yourself, because you might use Pete as a leader just so that your team survives. Again, it's not the most elegant way, but sometimes we just need to find a way to make it through the first round against these Mercer teams. Because as you're seeing in most of my matches, almost everyone is using a Mercer lead or a Jackie lead. In a few cases, we see Angel, but it's very rare. Another piece of advice I would like to say is just use Princess if you have her. Her active skill is second to none. By being able to normalize the defensive team, this gets rid of human shields like Frost. So Frost is no longer able to do his primary function. It gets rid of payback, so Shiva cannot do her primary function in preventing you from rushing. It stops bide toons so that they are not able to take in 2,000 damage and give back 3,000 damage. Princess also gets a huge boost whenever she's attacked. In that last match, she had 176% extra attack because of her Berserker and because of her special weapon, where she can gain additional attack if she's attacked. With whatever type of attacking team you're using, you really do have to focus on rushes and know when to rush and when to save a rush. In some cases, it's better to not rush as soon as you have your adrenaline rush and instead save it for the next turn so you can extend your turns of control on the enemy. Sometimes it's okay to let the defense rush, but you have to be very aware of what that defensive toon does. Sometimes it's just more ideal to save your rushes for the next turn when you're going to be expecting other toons to be able to rush on the defensive team that would have a greater impact on your team. So Angel is one toon that I let rush a lot on defense, but I don't always want Pete to rush. Sometimes if Pete rushes, it's okay, and that's only if everyone on the defensive team is either alive or they're decapped. Because in some cases, if Pete rushes, he's bringing toons back with full AP. And at that point, I'll be unable to manage or manipulate how that toon acts or reacts to my attacking team. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. I'll be sure to come up with some more war videos really soon.